In this session, we're going to cover the repair of the FFPC, Fluid-Filled Pressure Compensated Connector. Take a good close look at it. Pretty simple, isn't it? So far, everything that we've said about it might lead you to believe this, but actually, it's really more difficult to repair than the Multiplex 21. We're going to repair an FFPC that's been severely damaged in the field. Something has cut through the rubber covering and damaged a lead inside. We've already determined which lead has been damaged by using a volt-ohm meter to check continuity, and none of the other leads seem to be damaged, so we're only going to replace the damaged one. You'll need a few tools to do this with: a standard valve stem tool, a regular screwdriver, a plastic hammer, a soldering iron, a 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch hex wrench, a pair of needle nose pliers, and a pair of wire strippers. We'll also need solder, replacement O-rings, and replacement leads for the broken wires. The wire should be number 16 AWG dual pass EPC insulated conductor of 0.105 inch diameter. You should find some in your vector repair kit. Let's start by plugging the soldering iron in. Once it gets hot enough to melt solder, lightly file the tip to give us a clean surface to apply fresh solder to. Then tin the area. The next thing we have to do is determine whether or not the outside covering can be repaired. If the cut is larger than 1.5 inches to 2 inches, you should replace the rubber hose. A smaller cut can be repaired fairly easily, but if any of the leads were damaged, you'll have to repair them first. That means you'll have to pull the insert out and disassemble the connector. Now, it's possible that you'll run into a situation that won't require the disassembly of both connectors, like a bad solder joint on one of the receptacles. If this is the only problem, the insert can be popped out very easily. After the DC-200 has been drained, just remove the spiral locks that holds the insert in. Then take air pressure and inject it into the fill port. Build the pressure up slowly so that you don't overpressure the hose and cause it to explode. The back pressure will pop the insert right out so that you can check for bad solder joints. If the bad solder joint isn't on this end, just replace the insert and spiral locks and do the same thing to the other end. Since our hose is damaged, we can't remove the insert that easily. We'll have to back it out manually. After the DC-200 has been drained and the spiral locks removed, the pressure relief valve is removed with one of these valve stem tools. Notice that the tool has a threaded shaft. You'll need to screw it into the valve port. Near the end of the connector shell, you'll notice 3 cap screws. Remove them. Now loosen the hose clamps and slide them back out of the way. You might be able to remove the insert simply by pulling on it with the valve tool. If it'll pull out this way, fine, but don't pull on it with anything but your fingers, because if you pull too hard, you'll damage the insert. If it's too tight, like ours is, remove it like this. Have someone hold the connector by the neck of the rear plate. Now push down on the shell. The rear plate should slide into the shell. Knock the shell down over the end plate and pull outward on the valve tool repeatedly until the insert backs out. Then slide the shell back out of the way. This will expose the back side of the insert. use the same procedure to disassemble the other connector. Since we already know which lead is damaged, all that we need to do is remove the old wire and replace it with a new one. The one that needs replacing is this one, the second row, third from the left. To get to it, it'll be necessary to unsolder all of the first row leads. We don't have to worry about their placement because the boot seal plate will hold them in the proper position. Slide all of the boots from the first row back out of the way. Now we'll have to unsolder all of the first row, but before we do that, let's locate the exact contact to be replaced on the pin number chart provided in the workbook. Now the lead to be replaced is the second row, third from the end. On the chart we locate the key and the second row, third from the end. We'll mark it to help locate the correct contact on the other insert. Okay, let's go ahead and unsolder the leads. Go ahead and remove all of the first row. The broken lead on this one is the third from the end. Slide the rubber boot back. Now slide this one back too, so that the heat from the soldering iron doesn't melt it. Now unsolder the broken lead. If you hold each lead with the needle nose pliers as you heat the solder pot up, you can pull the lead out without burning yourself. Next, do the same thing to the other end. Make sure that you have located the right lead. Refer to the chart in your workbook to help locate the receptacle numbers for easier identification. Now, pull the broken wires out of each end. The new wire should be at least 6 inches longer than the total length of the connector to start with. We'll clip it back later. There's a length preparation chart in your workbook that will help you determine how long to cut the new leads. And a new hose, too, if you end up having to replace it. And don't forget that you have to have the right sized wire or the boot won't fit properly. It should be number 16 AWG dual pass EPC insulated conductor with a .105 inch outside diameter. First, slip the new wire into the correct hole in the seal boot plate. The wire is stiff enough and there should be enough residual DC 200 left in the connector to allow it to be pushed through the length of the hose. Push it as far as you can. You might have to work it past an obstacle or two, but it should slide right on through. Then go to the other end and fish it out with the needle nose pliers. Or if your damaged lead wasn't completely cut in two, you could simply solder the new lead to the old one and pull it on through. Next, slip it through the proper hole in the boot seal plate and slide a boot over the end. Strip the wire back about 1/4 inch and tin it. Then heat the solder pot up and terminate the lead. On the other end, cut the wire a little longer than the original leads, about 1 1/2 to 2 inches longer. Then strip it back 1/4 inch and tin it. If the connector was stretched, We would want the new lead to be long enough to allow the other wires to carry the weight rather than to snap the new one. Slip a boot over its end and terminate it just like we did on the other end. A little DC 111 over all the exposed leads, then the boots can be moved back into place. Next, solder all of the other leads into their respective solder pots. A little DC 111 on them too, and slide those boots into place. Check the O-rings on both the end plate and the insert and lube them with DC 111. Our insert seal was bad, so we replaced it. Locate the key in the insert and the shell and line them up. Put the split rings on and slide the shell up over the assembly. And press the insert into the shell. Now, snap the Spiralox ring into place. You should be able to pull the end plate into position. Twist it until the screw holes line up with the access holes in the shell. Then screw the cap screws in. Now, replace the hose clamps and tighten them down good. After both connectors have been reassembled, the damaged hose should be repaired. The idea in repairing a damaged hose is to place a patch over the torn area, then hold it in place with a neoprene band to help contain the subsea pressures. To hold the neoprene band in place, vinyl tape is used. This method of repair is relatively strong and waterproof. All of the materials you'll need should be in your Vector repair kit. We recommend using butyl rubber compound, a patching material. It's pliable, and when held tightly in place against the rubber hose, it tends to mold itself to the rubber. We've just cut this patch off of a hose that was repaired 6 months ago. As you can see, the patch material actually becomes a part of the hose. There should be plenty in your repair kit. This neoprene strapping should also be a part of your repair kit. It's an elastic, sticky strapping that stretches all over the outer layer of the hose to hold the patch tightly to the tear. And of course, the vinyl tape will be needed along with some safety clean and clean rags. First, the area to be repaired has to be cleaned. Drain as much of the DC-200 out of the hose as you can, and wipe the damaged area off with safety clean. Residual DC200 will keep the patch from sticking to the rubber hose. Safety Clean will take the DC200 off and give the patch a good, clean surface to stick to. Clean an area about 10 inches either side of the tear. Next, prepare the patch. This material is very pliable and it becomes softer as it's stretched. Go ahead and work it around for a couple of minutes. This softening will help make the patch cover the tear better and stick to the hose. It'll take about 3 inches to cover a tear 1 inch long. Stretch it out so that it extends at least 1 inch beyond the tear. Now make a second patch the same way. And work it in over the first one. When you've got them stuck down pretty good, take your neoprene strapping and peel the paper backing off. The neoprene will sort of stick to the hose. Start about 3 inches from the patch and begin to wrap it around the hose tightly. Wrap it with a 50% overlap and keep pulling on it tight as you go. Do this until you have covered the hose beyond the patch at least 6 inches. Then start wrapping back with a second 50% wrap. By 50% wrap, we mean that the upper wrap covers half of the lower wrap, so that there are actually 2 layers of material over the entire area for each pass. When you've completed the second wrap, break the neoprene and stick it down to itself. Take the vinyl tape and wrap it the same way. Start about 1 inch from where the neoprene strap ends and make a 50% wrap at least 2 inches beyond the other side of the neoprene wrap. Then come back across with a second 50% wrap. This method of patching, if it's done right, as we've just demonstrated, will seal out every condition that the hose will ever be exposed to. In fact, the seal is actually stronger than the rest of the hose. The next step is to pressure test the hose with water to make sure that the boots are sealing properly. Position the hose so that one connector is on the floor and the other is about 4 feet above, secured gently in a vise. Make sure that the pressure relief valve is removed from the connector that's in the vise. Slowly flow water into the cable.
Back out?
Yeah.
When it starts to come out of the pressure relief port, it's full. Replace the valve. After any hose or connector repairs, you should always run a pressure test on the cable. Apply pressure to the inner hose area through the fill port. Don't exceed 20 psi. Hold the pressure for at least 15 minutes. Then run an electrical test on the connector. This procedure is described in detail in your workbook. If everything checks out, drain the water and allow it to dry out. Then flow DC200 into the hose and replace the fill plug. As you can see, the FFPC can be difficult to repair. A major retermination job is time-consuming and could lead to failure if it isn't handled properly.